It's kind of tagged ours. You can proceed. We're going to proceed to the second session at 9:04. Still on new business item 3, overview of the FEDC budget. Oh, we're doing the strategic plan. Oh, yes, strategic plan. Texas Public Information Law and we did the FEDC strategic plan. So we're reconvening back at 4 minutes after 9, and I will continue. And the item that I want to talk to now is still item 2, FEDC strategic plan. And just for the information of the board, this is the document that was prepared back in 2000. It was done by a consulting firm, Angelo Economic Advisors out of Austin. And basically what they did is they did a complete assessment of the community, which included all the demographic information. You know, if you look on the table of contents, it kind of gives you an idea of what they looked at, and they took all these items into consideration to determine what the status of the Floresville economic situation was and where they could make recommendations to develop the city as we move to the future. Then they went in and did a target industry analysis, and basically cluster industry methodology. They explained what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and then things that they saw that could be important for the city of Floresville. The SWOT analysis basically looked at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats of the community, and I would recommend that y'all go over that and read it on your own time, if you will, and then make notes, and then you can come back and discuss it at a later time. They made some recommendations, basically 4 major recommendations for the city to follow. And then they had the appendices that they included. The report that was done back in 2000, all the assumptions that they made, taking a good analysis of the community, a lot of those are still valid. If you go back and look at the SWOT analysis and the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, let's say, just take for example on the threats, they talked about such things as the way that the city has developed over time, and either the lack of zoning or zoning that was not done correctly, let's say, in the past, where you have commercial, you know, you got some areas that are commercial, you got residential mixed in, either not imposing or not following the local ordinances in ways that, you know, properties can develop, or not enforce the ordinances as they are. And just, you know, just take a look down US 181, and some of the things they pointed out back in 2000 are still there. That has not changed. We don't have that authority. We don't have that power, but we do have the, you know, as a board to bring up these things that present to the city things that could challenge or could threaten the continued development of the city. And again, I won't go into detail, but just, you know, these are points for you to consider, points for you to think about as we engage the city, and as the city is moving forward on some new initiatives. These are things that need to be addressed, things that can be looked at. Much has changed since this report was put out. At the time, there was such a thing as the Texas Economic Development Department, or the Economic Department, or even the Commerce Department. But since that time, all that has changed. It's no longer an independent group. The Governor Perry, created a new group. It's the Office of Economic Development and Tourism, and it's run out of his office. So he consolidated all the funds for economic development, Texas Department of Commerce, in his office, and managed that out of his office. one of the things that does for us is that provides a source of all any leads coming into Texas are handled by the governor's office. They recommend that, you know, we follow their lead on bringing in new leads, new businesses into Texas. They send me information, and basically I get notified of leads that are coming in and whether we can qualify or not for there should be going around, yeah. In that particular one, it came in today, I believe, on this Friday, and a lot of these are short term. They want action right away. Some give you a week, some give you 2 weeks. This gives us till the 27th of December to respond. But it's a company looking to build assisted care living facilities. And you read this at the beginning, it all sounds, oh yeah, we got this, we can do this, you know, this is something we want. But if you turn the following page and see what the requirements are, they're very strict as to what, you know, community they're looking at. In this particular instance, they want a community with over 30,000 people in an MSA of at least 70,000. We meet the MSA requirement, but we don't have 30,000 residents in Floresville. And what they don't want us to do is say, well, we're going to submit it anyway. They won't accept it. And I've written proposals, I send them in. They don't want to see you submit a proposal unless you meet all the requirements. And they handle all of that. That saves us the money of trying to find, you know, leads of different corporations, companies coming in, the Caterpillar company coming into Seguin, those big storage facilities and distribution facilities in Seguin and Shirts. All of these things come through the governor's office. Toyota in San Antonio was handled by the governor's office and the city of San Antonio. What has changed to some degree now, and those don't go through the governor's office, is all this oil play that we're getting, the Eagle Ford play. And we get a lot of that, it's just people walking into the office, different developers coming in and asking questions, you know, are we interested in doing this? Is there room in the city for RVs? Is there room for this or room for that? But I get those on a regular basis. I have to stay linked with the governor's office. But, and it's not automatic. You have to be on the list so they can send you all this detail. Now, some of these that we can apply for are short notice, as I said. So, let's say we meet at the first of the month. And then, you know, I get, on Monday or Friday, I get this thing and I have to respond by next Friday. If it looks like something that we can respond to or we should respond to, that may provide a conflict and that I can't get to the board in time, or to get a meeting constituted to present this information and get a board decision. So that's one thing that we got to talk about.
This didn't come up in our conversation, but are conference calls allowed?
I'm sorry?
For meetings, are conference calls allowed, or do we have to meet in person?
I think
you're supposed to meet in person. You can meet by conference call, but there are some specific requirements. And in fact, I was looking at some of that earlier this evening, and I don't recall all the details, but you're generally required to meet in person. But yes, there are provisions for conference calls. It has to be, you have to, of course, you're supposed to record it, but
they're not posted in all three.
well, I have to look at it again, but I don't know whether there's a posting requirement, but there are additional requirements.
But for things like this, if you have something that needs quick
Right.
action.
and that presents a problem. So there may be something that we have to work out a mechanism where, you know, what I've done in the past, I've briefed the president and then briefed the board.
After the fact.
I'm sorry?
After the fact?
After I submit the request. And normally, if the requirements are so stringent, and now almost everybody's asking for incentives. If you look at this particular form, they all want incentives, and they want to see How much money do we have available? How much money are we willing to put up tax incentives, tax abatements? And my thing is, and based on we don't have an formal incentive program. We do it on a case-by-case basis, based on the company coming in and what it'll do for the city. And I bring that to the board decides yes or no, or to go on that or not. But again, these things come up all the time. Most of the time, we can't apply for it because we don't meet the criteria. On manufacturing, they want a major interstate highway, close proximity, within, let's say, 20 miles. So we'll take a stretch if we say, well, 1604 and I-35 or I-37 to the west, or más o menos within 25 miles or 20 miles. They want railroad, which we don't have. They want an airport, which we don't have. And sometimes they even want a seaport with all these other things together. We don't have any of that. So a lot of those reasons, we get eliminated just by where we are. Geography eliminates us on a lot of things. I still receive these, I still evaluate them, I still look at them, and then, you know, but how to bring the information to the board and how do we act on it within a timely basis, if it looks like it's something that we could act on.
I don't see why the board couldn't give you authorization with approval from the board, president or something, if you have doing RFI, if comply with what we're looking at and we meet the criteria, not like we're binding ourselves.
No.
So there wouldn't be a reason we can't give you authorization to do something like that.
Right, and you know, offer any kind of incentives, that would have to be an action by the board. And I clearly state to everybody that asks, we do not have a formal incentive program. It's a case-by-case basis, and I know the mayor knows this from the past. They come in asking for a lot of things, and you'd be surprised, you know, from cash, you know, to help them move, cash to train, cash to do feasibility studies. But we pay them to do a feasibility study to see if they can come into Floresville. What do we get for it? You know, we had one for $75,000, and we said, no, I mean, we're going to give you $75,000 for you to study whether you can do this company here in Floresville or not. That doesn't make sense. You know, so things like that, you know, that's something that, you know, I would never do.
Has there been any discussion about getting any updates to a plan like this? Because I know that a lot of these things do apply, but for the most part, it's.
And I've looked at it, I know the University of Texas at San Antonio has a well-developed economic development department, and they can do these kind of things at a lot lower rate than $25,000. That's what we pay for this. And I think sometimes it's the graduate school that does this with the professor overseeing. So they use a lot of interns and a lot of students to come and actually do the groundwork. But they write it up and the professor oversees the actual document. I can look into that and see, you know, what it would cost. But the changes in our demographics have been significant. The changes in our economic development posture have been significant, and also what's going on now, especially with Eagle Fort Way. But I can look into that and then report back to you as to what's available. Now, the other document that I gave you is basically things that we've accomplished up to now. And, you know, I use this document, and I refer to it all the time to see what we can and can't do, or what we should be looking at, what, you know, I use it as a reference point. And those things are just actions that have occurred and things that we've done since this document was issued. I was presented with this when I first came in, and then I took that as our standing, you know, strategic plan and study for the corporation, and I follow it and use that, you know, as we move on. I do recommend that you take, like I said, look at the SWOT analysis, and if you look on page 38, it gives you a one-page synopsis of what that is. And basically, if you look at it, it covers the strengths, which for us, the proximity to San Antonio is a strength. County seat for Wilson County. We have historic downtown Floresville, and that I have gotten more comments from people coming in, especially all these oil folks that are coming in from North Dakota and other parts of the country, how good our downtown looks. And they said rarely do we run into that, and I know they've not run into it south of us, but here we have a good, well-established downtown. Business owners are busy, they're doing work, it's looking good. Things need to be done, but it is there. Healthcare industry, that's another important one, and I know since development of the County Memorial Medical Center, and Mary Helen, you can address this probably better than I can in terms of what the healthcare industry in Floresville is, but we've become a center, a nucleus for this region. You know, a lot of people come to us for a lot of different services. That's an area where they, and the people doing this study believed that was an area we could develop and grow more into. And then the recent economic development initiatives, for us right now, it's basically the Eagle Ford Shale. But more importantly, before the Eagle Ford Shale, and all of us know this, Floresville was growing long before the Eagle Ford Shale began. With all the subdivisions around Floresville, all the actions that were taken by past councils, past boards, the city was growing. And you can see that, you know, within the zip code 78114, we've got 50% of the county population is that zip code. And that's basically from here to 775 and on towards the Lavernia area where all the housing area is. And now with Eagle Ford Shale, you know, it's even grown more than that. But so that's the strengths, and then the report gives you more detail about what there are, opportunities, things that we can look at, the weaknesses of the city, and then the threats. Basically, continued lack of economic diversification, unrevitalized downtown. At the time, we hadn't done all the work on the downtown. It looked pretty bad. Inadequate housing, we didn't have housing, and we still lack in many of these cases, but it's getting better. A threat was a relocation of Texaloid Foundry Company, which everybody was moving to find a place for Texaloid. Congestion of transportation route to San Antonio, and that's gotten worse. And continued lack of economic development vision. You know, what do we do for the town? How do we move it forward? What things do we look at? So, you know, that gives you a real quick view of that. But take a look at this, and again, this could be a workshop within itself, you know, over all of this. And normally what the experts recommend is you do have a workshop to develop your goals and objectives. We have stated goals and objectives as were stated in this report, and that's what we've used. But are they still valid? Can we change them? Do we go forward, or what do we do? And that's, unless there's any questions, that's all I'll say on this. You know, but there's a lot of information, and I would encourage all of you to read it and make notes, and then, you know, we can get back together and see how we can move.
New business, item 3.
Okay, overview of the FEDC budget for fiscal year 13 and current FEDC projects approved by the previous board and the council.
Wants to talk on the next item.
Okay, what I've done is basically make copies of what was approved before. And at the time, when I presented this to the board and we discussed it, the bank balances, and I'll just go through this, what we had at the time. Checking account, $8,775.56. Money market account, $639,864.78. A CD, $56,776.43. Total in the bank as of September the 30th was $705,416.77. And we still had sales tax receipts for September were projected to be $50,597.78. And then cash in the bank for fiscal year 2012 year end was $756,014.55. Projected income for the following year, for fiscal year 2013, which we are now in, beer warehouse rental, $7,500. Interest varied from the money market account primarily in the CD, $550. Senior apartment loan payments, and they're repaying a loan that we made to them. Regularly, they send us a monthly payment, $12,715. Projected sale of land, we have 3 contracts that we're working on, $450,000. And then projected sales tax revenues for the next year, $667,000 that we project to gain in fiscal year 13. And up to now, we've collected, in the month of October and November, $109,773.07 in sales tax revenue. So everything's going as we projected, pretty much. Keep in mind that sales tax receipts are always 2 months. What we collect in December, or actually, sales taxes for September. It's 60 days behind the power curve. But it's going good. Business looks good all the way around. Just judging by what you see in town, all the restaurants, all the little stores, shops, H-E-B is busy, Walmart is busy. So I think the projections will hold. Total projected income for fiscal year 2013, $1,137,765. And then total funds available for fiscal year 2013, $1,893,779.55. And then the expenditures that I presented to the board, a beer warehouse, and on the second page, and the third page goes into detail on the expenditures. So basically, I'll just go through these, and then I can cover the beer warehouse expenditures, $3,500. That's basically maintenance and any repairs that we have to make. Downtown renovation listed out $50,000, and I'll explain that later. Lone Oak Business Park, $10,000. Veterans Park, $6,000. Rancho Grande Business Park, $350,000. US 181 infrastructure, $150,000. Personnel, $90,252. Administration, $28,400. Marketing and promotion, $15,000. Debt service, $172,019. And the Civic Center, an indebtedness that was due to the city from fiscal year 11, they requested funds from us. The board approved it, $123,000. And then the last item, we'll discuss in more detail, a sports facility enhancement and expansion. The board approved and sent to the city council $125,000 per year for 20 years to cover the cost of a loan for the improvement and expansion of the sports facilities. And I'll explain that as well in more detail. Total expenditures, $1,123,171. And taking the revenues and subtract the expenditures, at the end of the year, cash reserves at the end of fiscal year 13 project $777,608. $777,608.55. Now the second page explains the expenditures, and this one basically goes through personnel. Executive director salary, $67,202. I've got a projects coordinator, I've hired a temporary assistant to help with the projects, the building of the roads, the water, where the installation of water lines at the business park, the utility. We have the project with McCoy's to bore under 181 and extend the sewer line from the west side across or underneath 181 to the east side at the Witten property where the McCoy store is going to be.
Who is that project coordinator?
I'm sorry?
Who is the projects coordinator?
McCoy's.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the project coordinator, I'm sorry, that's Mr. Guillermo. I hired
Who?
Vicente Grego, used to be the city public works director.
Is he full-time?
I'm sorry, no, temporary.
How many hours does he work?
It depends, Mayor. Sometimes he works, 15 hours, sometimes 20 hours a week.
Have any
It
contract labor?
depends on what I've got him working on.
Contract labor?
Yes. And he also works for the city as inspector. But the projects that he does for us is basically on estimating the cost of the, like the roads and the water lines, the electricity, et cetera. In the past, we've used the city engineer to provide cost estimates, and by going through the engineers is a lot more expensive.
Is it more accurate?
I'm sorry?
Is it more accurate?
Probably so, because it's an engineer versus a non-engineer.
Has it cost us money to do it?
It costs us more money to do it, yes.
No, I mean, has it caused us to incur more expense? Because Vicente did something wrong?
No, and normally, what we do is on a project that's a major project, and we have the city engineer review all the plans anyway.
Who is the city engineer?
Larry Heimer.
On Vicente, do you have an independent contractor's agreement that he signed off on?
It's more or less, I don't have an agreement, I can have one. I don't have a signed contract with him.
You need an independent contractor's agreement probably with him, I believe.
So if he got hurt doing something on FEDC's time, who pays for that?
I'm sorry?
If he was injured doing something for FEDC, who pays for that? How's he covered? Do we have workers' comp?
That's a good question, and I can't answer that right now.
Without an independent contractor's agreement?
You
Do
mentioned
you
that,
have one that you can provide him with everything?
I can draft it, no, I don't have it, but I can draft one.
Well, while we're on the topic of contracts, Jesse and I went in to talk to Jesse last week to try to get some information and learn what I needed to learn. And I found out you don't have a contract?
I do not have a contract. When I was hired, I was told I would be given a contract. And I asked for the first couple of years, and then I just didn't ask anymore. They didn't offer me a contract. So I'm here day to day.
Continuing on Vicente, what kind of agreement do you have to pay him per hour?
I'm sorry?
What is Vicente hourly wage?
I believe it's $20 an hour. And again, I'm hiring him for his knowledge of the, the sewer lines, the water. He can give me a very good estimate.
You're definitely gonna need to get some more of those things.
I'm sorry?
You're definitely gonna need to get some more of those things.
you mentioned that Mr. Heimer gets called on certain things
Yes.
after Vicente does whatever. So we have to pay Heimer also?
Well, we have to
on top
pay
of that?
Heimer because a lot of the work we're doing right now, we have to get approval from TechStat. And for him to submit the documentation, I've got to have I have an engineer to do the work. What
Where is that
Vicente
spent?
does, I'm sorry?
Where's that spent?
It comes up in the, like the Rancho Grande Business Park, that's part of the cost of the engineer. What I haven't done is, broken down each item, and let's say, okay, so much is engineer, so much is this, so much is that, and I can do that. You know, or take the item, let's say, if you look at the third page, the Rancho Grande Business Park, entry to the park, and then you complete the road. I can show you what, most of the engineer work's already been done, and then that's already been paid for. The item that we're waiting on there is, he submitted the request for approval from TxDOT to do the entry points. And there's been some question as to how much work we're gonna have to do on 537. The road is very narrow. It wasn't designed for all the traffic that we're going to get on it. And there's not too much more that can be done other than maybe on the back side of, on the north side of 537, you know, add a three-foot shoulder or something. And that's what Mr. Heimer is requesting for TxDOT. But in terms of, you know, we use the engineer for all the major, you know, projects. The boring of the highway, you know, for the McCoy project, has to be done by the engineer. In this case, it'll be the engineers from McCoy.
So you don't need Vicente for something like that?
I'm sorry?
You don't need Vicente for something like that?
No, no. And he's on a limited time, you know, so I put in this amount of money. I may not use all of that money, and I may not use it beyond a certain point in time. Because after that, then, you know, we don't have all these major projects. Once we finish working at the Rancho Grande Park, you know, do all of that, get that out of the way, then, you know, the need to hire somebody like Vicente is reduced. And in the past, you know, I would go to the city manager and they would give me assistance at no charge to us. Where the, you know, either be it Mr. Diego or somebody on the city staff, Mr. Vasquez, the road man, they would come and give us estimates to save money. You know, so we don't always use engineers. Yes, that is good to do, but it's also very expensive. Any engineer study, you're looking at starting at about 30,000 and up. But I can bring you more information on that.
What about the water drainage and feasibility work out there at Rancho Grande? Is that included in the road?
I'm sorry, the
Water drainage study issue?
yes. The water drainage study's already been done, okay? And what the water drainage study recommends, and I've not added that in here yet because I wanted to bring it to the board, is if we take the engineer study as presented, you know, they're looking at about $650,000 worth of work on the drainage alone. And I can show you the report, and you know, I've talked to individuals like Mr. Lambert and others. I've been out there when it rains and when it was really raining hard back in 2002 or whatever. But the problem with the property out there is it, from the south to the north, it moves into the middle part. There's a creek that runs through the middle part of the property. And then from north to south, it drains towards the creek. All the water flows down towards the creek. If we did nothing right now, all the water flows down to the creek. But the engineers say that because you're gonna have 16 companies out there eventually, that they're gonna have truck pads, they're gonna have yards, but none of them that I know of are gonna have impervious material. They're not gonna pave, they're not gonna concrete the areas. They're basically laying down base material, and they're leaving about, you know, 15, you know, let's say 20 to 30% of the property, it's gonna remain green. They're not gonna do anything to it. The property adjoining the creek remains green. We've retained 23 acres in the middle of the property as a green belt. The roads that we're looking at and how we're designing them, the water runs down the bar ditch to the middle. But what they're telling us that we have to do is we have to mitigate 600 to 700 acres around us that's not on the FEC property. You know, if you go out there and look, and I ask all of you to come out there with me and I'll show you, when that property was bought, nothing has changed in terms of how the water runs. It runs down the creek and it goes into adjoining properties and then I guess on down to the river eventually. But it's been that way. It's always been that way. A problem we had with drainage was not from the rain, and it was not from draining off the properties that are being developed, but it was drainage from the farmers to the east of us that were irrigating their fields in the summer, and all the water runs across 537, down where Mr. Jerome Fleer has his property, through his property in a creek, and he built this humongous retention pond, but that still doesn't get all that water. We had water from the farms, and it washed out the work that we were doing on the culverts and the bridge that we were building over our creek. I went to the commissioners, I asked them about it, and I was told, well, there's nothing that you can do about that. I said, well, shouldn't there be something that the neighbors, if they're putting water on our property, isn't there some recourse that we have? And I said, there wasn't any. So that's an issue that we have to continue looking at. I've not gotten any pressure from the county. They wanted the report. I presented the report. It's an extensive study that was done by Mr. Heimer in conjunction with the county attorney. But, you know, people that we've had out there looking, they don't understand why we would have to do all this work. They're calling for building a retention pond that's about a 5 to 6 acre retention pond with 6 to 8 foot walls, and then like 36 60-inch pipes, you know, to allow the water to come out on the far west side of the property. And where's the water going to? It's going to the property that it's always been going to for time immemorial. But again, you know, I briefed the board then, as I'm briefing you now. My recommendation was, let's wait and see what happens, and see if there's a more or least costly way of doing these retention ponds if we have to build it. We don't have $650,000 to spend on retention ponds, I can tell you that right now. But all this retention pond talk does not impact any of the companies out there. They're not affected by any flooding. We're not in a flood zone. We've never been in a flood zone. The way the road is designed, the way they're doing the work, the water drains either to the back of their property, onto the creek, or onto the road, and then it follows the bar ditch to the creek. And if you go out there and see right now, not much has been disturbed. Now, the properties on the far southeast side and the far southwest side, which are the back properties, they probably will have to do some mitigation for some of the water that runs through their property, but it doesn't impact the rest of the park. So I didn't put any monies in here for that. That could become an issue later on. You know, as we finish the roads and do all the other work out there. But at this point, you know, my recommendation has been let's just wait and see and see how it goes. To spend $650,000 to mitigate 600 to 700 or 800 acres around us doesn't make sense. Why are we doing that and they're not doing anything?
I think that's a whole other workshop in itself right there.
Right there.
We need to see, you know, all the surveys, we don't,
The studies.
you know, the studies, this is,
Yeah, and I've got all that, you know.
I think that I think this is a problem that needs, we can't go on until we fix this,
No, I understand.
resolve this problem.
Have you TCEQ, because this is TCEQ issue too, have they said anything about this, or we just laid under the law under this?
No, because we're not in a flood zone.
You really don't have to be in a flood zone from the experience that I've seen for TCEQ to be involved.
You know, I've talked to the city, you know, city manager and city staff, city floodplain coordinator, and, you know, TCQ has never been raised.
This property is on county area, right?
County area, certainly.
There's an agreement with regard to that project.
It is the FEC, City of Floresville, and it stays with us.
Local.
Yeah, we got a local agreement.
You know, I can empathize with what you're saying. It's not, we didn't create this, but unfortunately I deal with a lot of developers that have to deal with this same thing, big water retention ponds. It is what it is. I don't know what we're gonna do to get out from under it.
And
It is a liability we've got to face today.
And if we can't get a waiver from anybody, eventually we're gonna have to do it. And then find the best way to do it. You know, do we need to spend $650,000? I don't know.
We're gonna get $1.5 million later on if we wait.
Yeah.
What's left on the water and electrical?
I'm sorry?
Water and electrical?
We've done the water and the electricity is already out there. We installed an 8-inch line, you know, from 537 all the way through the property, north to south and east to west. The electricity was brought in as well, a phase 3 electric line.
It's all that.
It's all there. The only point we're working on right now is to, as we're working on the road and finish the road, is to put sleeves across the road for the telephone company to install their lines. But that's a minor thing. The water and electricity are there already. We don't have city sewers system out there, so everybody has to do their own septic tanks. And they have to go through the county and, you know, get the approvals, et cetera, for that. That's been going okay. We haven't heard any complaints or anything like that.
And the county will never accept the roads as long as it's hanging out there.
I'm sorry?
The county will never accept those roads as long as we have this drainage hanging over our head.
I didn't get
The
those.
county's not gonna accept those roads, I wouldn't think, until this is resolved.
The roads are gonna be city roads. They will retain the city, they're part of the city. The city will be responsible, FPDC and the city, to maintain the roads. The county doesn't want the roads.
Bless their hearts.
And the reason, you know, when we started working out there, we prepared all the documents and everything to go forward to, you know, plat it and everything else. But then the county was gonna require us to post a $500,000 bond for roads, and then another bond for something else. At the time, our attorney, Mr. Howard Berger, said, well, let's go and talk to the county attorney, Mr. Russell Wilson, when he was talking to us at the time. So we went to him and explained the situation to him, and the fact that, okay, well, is it gonna ever revert back to the county? No. Is it gonna be part of the city? Yes. So they, in essence, waived the requirement for us to plat this property like you normally would if you were a developer platting any kind of acreage. The requirements then were that we do a road plan, do a drainage study. You know, there were certain things that we had to present to them, and we've done all that. So, you know, this issue about the roads, from the beginning, they said there will be FPDC and city roads. And we said yes. And they were kind of relieved that so we weren't requesting or asking for any support from them. So that's how it ended. In retrospect and in, you know, looking back, it probably should have been better for us to go ahead and plat it just like they would any other development, with the one exception, not to have us pay the $500,000 bond or post it. We didn't have the money at the time. So a lot of times, a lot of things that we're doing, a lot of things that I've presented to you in this budget, we don't have $1.1 million in the bank. You know, so as we accumulate the money, then we pay for the projects. So that issue, and it's gonna have to be dealt with, and I agree with you, Andy, that, you know, we're gonna have to come to some resolution with the county on that. I believe we can show that there is no negative impact on any of the companies that are out there. And there is no negative impact on the neighbor, which would be to our west side. And I forget, I don't know if it's a Swing Tex or some other family that owns that property. That property to the west of us has always been grazing land. The part where the creek comes through has been, it's always looked the way it looked like our property looked when we purchased it. You know, it was overgrown with brush. The center part where the creek is, you know, had all kinds of debris, tires. Mr. Martin used to have a shooting range out there. He had different shooting points and targets. He had like and I call it a combat range because that's what we used to do in the Army. So you're going down, all of a sudden a target pops up. And he drove me through there one time. It was very interesting, but I said, you know, we got to clean this up. He said, well, you know, I'm just going to take my stuff. But basically just took his weapons and his targets.
Hopefully he didn't have any IEDs.
Right.
Well, I haven't been out there in a while, but is there streets and curving on anything at all or not?
No, we're not gonna put curbing right now.
Right.
We're doing the roads, they're rough cut, we based them. We need to do more work, because of the problems we had in the summertime with the water. The engineer recommended we shift the road over a little bit, and to avoid some of the issues with the water, we're doing that now. There's $350,000 that I have, based again on the reports that I get back from the engineer. We've not done anything other than to base and to pack it really good. As we have them right now, they're usable. And the initial thing was to get out there and get the roads started so we could start showing the properties and start getting the companies to come out and look. If it rained before we did that, you couldn't get past maybe 100 yards into the property.
Who's doing the road work?
I'm sorry?
Who's doing the road work?
Again, I'm using Mr. Grego. We've done work in the past with Mr. Freddie Ortiz, and the city has helped a lot. We paid the city to do some of that work as well. But this is a major, to complete this work, then, you know, we're gonna bid this project out. And normally what we try to get is 3 proposals. If we go through a formal bid process, which we may have to do on this one because of the nature of it, and also because TxDOT's involved, we have to show TxDOT that what we're doing is, we'll be up to standards with them. A bid process takes about 30 days to set up, request the bids, and then the engineer, normally we hire him, the city engineer, to receive the bids and make recommendations, and then he opens the bids, and then we go from there. Because we're getting into the winter season, and most of these companies out there, well, they were in a hurry to get the property, things kind of have slowed down some. I think we have time to, some of this work we can still do during the winter time, but to do any actual paving or, you know, putting down the pavement, we're gonna have to wait possibly till spring. Because if we try to do it now, it won't last. But the roads as they are now will allow the companies to come in and do what they need to do.
So the business part still a lot of unknowns out there.
I'm sorry?
The business part, it thinks there's still a lot of unknowns, haven't get bid for the paving.
Right.
So this number could change dramatically.
It could change, but we're hoping we can keep it, you know, pretty close.
How many linear feet is it you're talking about?
We're talking maybe 1.5 miles.
This civic center, due to the city, what is that?
Okay, that was back in fiscal year 10 and fiscal year 11. The city was running into some situations and making some of their debt service calls, payments, and also some of the infrastructure at the civic center. They came to us and said that they needed assistance from the FEC to pay for some of the work off of Highway 97 entryway and some of the drainage work that was being done out there. Also, we paid for, and these are all, you know, the total was close to $300,000. That's what we remained owing them, and I kept telling them we didn't have the money to pay them, you know, in fiscal year 11, because I never wanted to go below the reserves that we had in the bank to cover our accounts. So I kept stalling, if you want to call it that, to pay that final amount. And the city kept sending me notices. I kept reporting to the board and telling them this is what I'm doing, no problem. Finally this year they said, you know, at the beginning of the fiscal year, we really need the money. And I presented it to the board again, put it on the budget, they approved it. I paid that at the beginning of the fiscal year. But my thing has always been to them is that, you know, FEC can't always be the last resort for any needs that they may have, any shortages that they may have, especially in terms of the civic center. Funds were obtained to build the center. Funds
I'm
were
sorry,
obtained.
I don't know much about this terminology, but is this a form of commingling?
No, because keep in mind, commingling means I take this money and mix it in with this money.
So they didn't have any money to
Okay.
mix.
What, the civic center is a 4B project, you know, and, you know, but it was, they approved a quarter-cent sales tax to pay for that. They borrowed monies to pay for that. And refinanced the loans that they had. They did a lot of things, you know, in the running up to building the civic center. As they were completing the civic center, they didn't have enough funds to pay for certain things. So they came to the board, you know. Normally, the city councilman or the mayor or, you know, the 4A people would come and speak to us about that. I would always advise the president, secretary, the treasurer, and advise them of what's going on. I would present to the board what they're requesting. And my thing was that we didn't think that they had the authority to come in and tell us to move the money. You know, like we discussed earlier in the bylaws, you know, the board decides. The board runs the affairs of the corporation. They can request we do it. Well, so, you know, people were changed,
Board members.
the
So
board,
don't
the
agree.
board,
Yeah.
the board was
Get the board
appointed.
member you need to make the deal happen.
You know,
Say again?
Get the board member you need to make the deal happen.
Yes. And again, you know, I'm caught, you know, I take the
You don't have a contract.
When they find out.
But, you know, I understand we're part of the city. And I understand we've always had reserves, and Mayor Ramirez knows this. We've always maintained active reserves. We've always maintained enough money to cover all of our debts. All of our debt payments, when they're due, we make them. That's never been an issue, you know. But these things have occurred in the past.
It's
And
called
that's why I keep
fiscal
insisting
responsibility.
that the board needs to be independent. They need to think independently. What's in the best interest of economic development and all the projects that we have.
So if we can't afford something, we ought not to be doing it.
I'm sorry?
If we can't afford something, we ought not to be doing it.
Is that interlocal agreement fund for the city, is that something similar,
I'm sorry?
the interlocal agreement fund?
No, what that is, Andy, that's that loan where we borrowed $1.5 million to cover all the, you know, we had the Walmart deal coming up. That was about $400,000 we had to pay. The boards then decided we had all these projects, not little, but projects that we had working. The downtown renovation, we needed work to be done on the Veterans Park. The initial work that we did, before we had all these companies come in at the business park. So we borrowed 1.5 million. The city borrowed 8 million certificates of obligation.
I'm with you.
And then I think 6 million went to or 5 million went to the Civic Center. And then the city retained the remaining part, you know, 1 point something million or 2 million. And we received 1.5 million of that. That's the amount that we borrowed, we're paying that, you know, and then we're making the, you know, the debt service payment, and I believe for that one,
how many years?
this, I think is a 25-year, agreement. And, interlocal is $114,019. Now, that's separate and apart from any other thing that they were requesting us to do. When they asked me to look at whether we could or could not participate in a sports complex, which is not our term, we never used that term. That was the city council using that term. My first question to them was, okay, who else is contributing? Well, I was told the city council, the 4A, the Sports Foundation, and the FAC. And they said, okay, how much are you looking for each organization to provide or to cooperate with? And I was told that there wasn't a certain amount, but it, you know, it would be left to the boards. So I told them at the first meeting, 25,000 that we would provide for a sports complex, period. No loans, no nothing, just 25,000. Well, okay, you know, so then discussions were held. I was invited to meetings. My board president was invited to meetings. The number kept changing, and then it was just the FEDC that had resources to put in. 4A didn't have money because they were behind already. The Parks Foundation, I believe, was trying to get monies that the city allocated to them from the water bills or whatever. So then it came back to us. So from 25,000 it went to 40,000, 40,000 to 63,000, and then to 125,000. My initial recommendation to the board was that if we have to put in that kind of money, we don't own the debt. We don't borrow the money. The city borrows and we assist them in paying the debt service. Well, this past summer, and that's what got us to all the discussion that we're going to go into in a little bit about, you know, whether we should or should not build a sports complex. If you recall, and, you know, we took this vote back in fiscal year 11, back in September, October of 2011. And the initial motion was to allocate $100,000 to pay, to help the city pay, you know, the debt service on the loan that they were going to acquire, or monies that they were going to acquire. That motion failed. Another motion was made for $125,000. That motion carried. But that was done, and the language that we used was to improve and enhance the facilities that we now have at the River Park. At the time also, I presented information on the drainage issues that we have at the River Park, the river destabilization issues that we have. Back in 2009, I worked closely with San Antonio River Authority on their Regional Parks Planning Commission, and, you know, we're able to bring issues and problems that the cities have reference their parks on the river. I presented to them the issue of our drainage and our river destabilization that was occurring. They agreed to send us a team of engineers at no cost to us. That saved us $90,000. They came and did the studies and clearly showed that there's work to be done. And I've got a board that I can show you on that, and I've got the studies that they gave us. And they recommended at the time to fix the river stabilization, the destabilization, and the drainage problem that has resulted and gotten worse because of the Civic Center. It was never done correctly in how the water flows off the Civic Center, and it basically collects at one point, and you know where the Lions Park is back there. If you look now, it just collects at that point, and then it turns to the left and goes right into the ball fields. And that's what's going underneath the ball fields. The ground remains saturated and it's creating sinkholes. Now that problem can be remediated and can be fixed probably without too much expenditures, because if you take that drainage that they built and carry it out about another 150 yards, turn it naturally to the left, and there's a already made retention pond that the water has created over time, dump it into that, and then find a way how to get it to the river, it bypasses the city park altogether. So that saved us $90,000. I presented that information to everybody, nothing was done. And I felt at the time that was a city responsibility, not an FEC responsibility. I've also briefed our board members on the Cerro board, Mr. John Fleer, here in Floresville. I showed him all that information. You know, I've talked to the director of Sarah, explained all that situation, but they tell me there's no money in the budget for these kind of things. Not to say that we can't go back and continue making a pest out of ourselves and see if they can help us. But my intent, and again, when we were asked to allocate resources to, you know, to build more fields and you know, the sports complex per se, we didn't buy into that. We believed, the board believed, and I recommended highly, that we fix the problem on the river first. To fix the river stabilization problem and the drainage, is the estimate that Sarah gave us is $350,000 to fix that. But that has to be done, and either whether we participate or not, the city's going to have to do something, because they're in danger of losing the ball fields out there at the river park. And I know Mayor Ramirez was here when that was done. That took a lot of effort to get them built, and through the years, it just didn't happen last year. It's work that's been going on, and we've never done the right things to fix that problem.
And then we made it worse.
I'm sorry?
We made it worse.
Made it worse because the water from the Civic Center rushes down.
How was that missed?
I'm sorry?
I know this is not the meeting for that, but Jesus Louise, how was that missed?
Let me just say this, I grew up on the San Antonio River all my life, and my dad did too, right across the road.
Right.
And I don't care what kind of work you will do on that bank, you'll never be able to control the erosion. And so then the alternative would be possibly relocating some fields.
Right.
And creating a kind of a buffer zone between those back fields, because you'll never be able to stop that erosion.
Well, what they've recommended right now is for us to put the area off limits from the backside of the ball fields to the banks, and just cordon it off and make it off limits to people, because you can go out there and look. You know, there are some deep holes out there, and they're getting deeper. And if we get any kind of rain this winter, which hopefully we will because we need it, that's gonna make the problem that much worse. But Jason's got a point, because the problem has gotten a lot worse since 2009 when they did this thing.
And the sinkholes will never stop either. We
Probably
fill
not.
holes up all the time on our place, and it's just part of the way the, you know,
The geography.
ground.
Make up of the soil. That's-
Mhm.
So I've got the studies, and, you know, we've done all that. And that was one of the things that I was recommending to the board, and the board pretty much followed. We never got a plan as to what the city wanted to do, reference the sports complex or the sports facilities. There were different meetings, there were different things that were drawn up, but there was never a clear plan as to what was gonna be done. Our thing was that if we borrow this money, we work on the river's destabilization, the drainage problem, fix the fields that we now have, fix the concession stand and the bathrooms at the fields. At our public meeting that we had the people from the Little League come in. They brought us pictures, and the man almost, you know, breaks down because of the condition of the fields. And the sinkholes are a problem. The kid running for a fly ball is gonna step in one of those things, break a leg. When you hit the fence, if you're going again, trying to catch you're gonna get snagged on the wires that are out there, and that can tear you up. So our thing was to spend money to fix the fields, if we can fix them. More studies have to be done. In fact, Sarah is recommending we take another look at the destabilization and see what else can be done, if it can be done. I mean, the problem's got a lot worse. So then we fix those areas. Then I recommend, we've been working on park in Goliad Road, Cantarana Park for some time. We bought 8 acres there. We've been developing them. We got a plan for that. Mr. Earl McKenzie donated 12 acres to the FEDC back in 2007, 2008. There's 12 acres are right off of Business Loop 181 where Southern Spring ends. If you look across the other way, there used to be a road that went through there. It's on the south west side of Northcrest subdivision. Those 8 acres can be built, and we basically cleared it, leveled it and I don't have all those numbers, but that was one of the items or things to consider in the future. We've got plans that we could turn McKenzie Park into a youth soccer football park. And all we have is the soccer and the Wildcat football team, soccer for boys and girls from high school on down to the little ones, and then also build some T-ball parks there. The water lines are already there, the sewer lines are there, because it used to be a public road. There's water easements and sewer easements there. So for us to install bathrooms and to install water, you know, water for the kids and irrigation, that wouldn't be that much, that wouldn't be that costly. I haven't done a complete review or analysis how much it would take to build it up. I've got a plan that, you know, I think could work. We need the city to help us clear out that easement and reinstall Southern Springs Road. That's something Mr. Rosenberg is aware of. I've talked to him about it. But they have to do that because there's no access to that property. There's 12 acres of land right there.
Is there a cemetery though?
Cemeteries to the front.
Just past the cemetery.
But that could, if we can't work on the river park. That would solve the problem for the football and soccer. You still have the problem with the Little League, where you put them. So our intent then was to construct 2 new fields behind the Civic Center for Little League, you know, that they could use. And maybe save 2 or 3 of the fields if we can't do much work and use them as practice fields. But do the tournament playing and everything up on top of the hill. Our intent from all along, and what the boards were discussing and deliberating, was to improve and enhance the sports facilities for the children. Now, we got sued over that because they said we had an illegal meeting that discussed proving getting a loan for this money. The terms of the contract for the loans were never agreed to, and we'll talk more in detail a little bit on that, but we never, talked about building a sports complex. That wasn't our language. That wasn't what we're doing. But you will see is as you sit on the boards, you get pressure from different areas coming in. The mayor knows. And then how do we react? And how do we go? But on on this, then the final part was that, they presented us a loan package, from Government Finance Capital,
Government capital.
yeah, a company out of the Dallas area which lend money, to municipalities and things. But it was a loan for $2.1 million. At a the loan was a variable rate. Every 5 years, the loan would reset. And I said, we can't accept that because I don't know and you can't tell me what we're gonna wind up paying. If I'll go to the bank, any bank, and I borrow money, on a long-term basis, the best interest for us is to get it fixed term. And the term remains fixed throughout the term of the note. It doesn't change, and you banks can probably help us out with that a little bit in talking how it works, but I didn't think we should get into a loan that would reset every 5 years. So that was the first questions I started asking. Now, they accused me of backpedaling and foot dragging on the one side. On the other side, I was being accused of making this happen real fast. But I didn't think we should get into a loan that was variable and it would change every 5 years.
While we're talking about loans and debts, I'd like to, at the next meeting, we need to discuss all the notes and debt obligations
Okay.
in total,
In conjunction with the,
everything that we owe.
no, but I'm
And-
saying
Yeah,
along with the
the
bylaws and the
Yes,
bylaws.
yes, and the terms, and the rates,
I'm sorry?
the terms and the
Okay.
rates and everything. Because, we're throwing a lot of figures out here, and, we've already talked about 1.5 million, 25-year note.
Right. But just so you know, we never, the 1.5 million note we took, yes.
Yes, and we still have debt service, I'm sure, on the business part and some of these other
Yes, it's
entities.
58,000 remaining on that.
Okay, so, we just need to be clear on
Understand.
and what our debt service is. And
So I might recommend that maybe we have not taken any loans out, we've not signed any documents. I recommended to the board, president and the secretary and the vice president, not to sign any documents while we were under the threat of a lawsuit. Because I didn't think it would be right and correct for us to do that. Regardless of how we thought the lawsuit may come out, we never thought the lawsuit had any merit, and the court ruled that way. They ruled in our favor. So then, it was reported or rumored then that we would instantly sign the loan document. Well, no, because we still hadn't, arranged to see how much we're gonna have to pay and what would the terms of the loan be. So I recommended to the board we do nothing, and then the elections came up, then I recommended to the board we still don't do anything and bring it to the new board. My recommendation to this board would be that, we don't take any action on this loan document until we do as you say. And then do we need to pursue, based on the problems at the river, and the threat to the park that's out there, and the Little League that uses it constantly, we may have to look at something else. But at this point, I couldn't tell you what it's gonna take. I don't know how much it's gonna be. But I wouldn't recommend we sign any kind of loan right now.
so I think we're on item, then are we officially on item number 4?
We moved up.
Yeah.
Well,
And we had some citizens input on item number 4.
before we get there, on your budget here, appreciate your work. I understand that y'all put some effort into this past year, and one of the first budgets y'all really ever done. I do think there's a little bit of fallacy in y'all's budget. Number, you're using like the projected land sale, 450,000. Well, that would be correct for 2013.
Right.
But you're trying to maybe commit us to do these loan payments for many years.
Understand?
We're not buying land to resell it to add the constant income.
No.
So that income, you should not use that non-reoccurring income as
Understand.
for
Right.
2015, 17, 18,
Right.
it's not gonna be there.
Yeah, and basically on that, Andy, is those funds are basically invested back in the project that we have.
That's right. So we don't
And
use it
what we
for,
use for debt service is basically the sales tax funds, because those
That's
are
right.
recurring.
so we need to, if we're gonna use the cash flow to what we're gonna do, we could eliminate that.
Yeah.
On the projected cash sales tax revenue, you're using the income average from what we're doing this year.
Right.
And I understand that, but I also know I'm old enough and I'm a white oil field track boy, and this oil and gas thing's not gonna continue forever.
Not
We don't
that.
wanna use the top of our numbers here
Well,
to
And what I normally
complicate
do is,
yourself.
I go down lower than what I think it's gonna be.
So what was our 5-year average, or what was it 5 years ago in normal
And I
before?
can give you that.
And that's what we need to use to
Okay.
see where we're gonna be in our,
Right.
and we're
And
trying to
I think-
obligate ourselves.
Yeah, and to get a better, clear picture.
Yes, sir.
Understand, and we can do that. Now, we had some citizens input,
Are you on item number 4 now?
the
Can
loan,
you
I
read
just
it out
kind
for
of
me,
jumped
please? I
into
can't remember what it was.
That's where we are.
Loan,
the proposed loan and financing agreements. And again, as I was discussing during the budget, my recommendation to the board is gonna be to, stay where we're at, stop any action on this loan until we get a clear picture of what is required. We don't know specifically what's required at the park. I don't believe the city has the resources to cover that problem out there. So I think, they're gonna come back to us and request assistance from us to do that. It has to be done. There's work that's gonna have, one way or the other, something's gonna have to be done. And then do we or do we not wanna participate? And then as Mr. Eubanks has pointed out, then we need to relook at, what our finances are gonna be in the future, and can we meet that, requirement or not?
Come on.
I guess, Mr. Gonzalez, if you have a question?
Well, actually, Jesse has covered a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about. I only will say this, I can't say what direction this particular CNA is going. I can't tell from what you've written down. And I'm not as concerned about that as I am concerned about the need that's out there. And I think everybody here will agree with me that there is a very clear need for us to get involved and maybe to expend some money to fix the problems. Now, from what you said here, what Jesse said, we don't know for sure, what will fix the problems that will be a permanent fix and that will be cost effective for us. All I'm saying is, let's not lose sight of the fact that we have a real need over here. It has nothing to do with a sports complex. It simply has to do with providing a safe environment for our kids and meaningful recreational opportunities. And all I'm saying, bottom line is, don't lose sight of the fact that we have a need and carefully plan what we need to do. Then, by all means, let's keep that need high priority.
David Mass, you want to add anything to, since we're on this agenda item?
Just add for added information at the council workshop, Mr. Wynn, what's his name? Hopkins, who's the president of the Floresville Little League, came in and informed us that he had a number of oil companies that had made indications that they would be willing to donate money to improve the fields there and ask for direction from the council. He said he didn't want to go to the oil fields and ask for $100,000 or ask for $500,000 without knowing what he could do. And we very, very specifically told Mr. Hopkins, bring the council a plan. What do you want? What do you want to build? How do you want to build it? And then we as the council, in addition to what are you going to build and how are you going to fund it, what assistance do you need from the city to make this happen? And my understanding is he was going to go back and they're in the midst of those plans. I do also know that the city is looking at the erosion problem out there. And if we do anything, it's going to have to be a collective effort. But I would, as your executive director has recommended, not take any action on this until we know what we have to do, who's going to do what, and what those pieces are going to be from the city's perspective, from the Economic Development Corporation's perspective, and to some extent the 4A corporation if the drainage that's creating or amplifying the problem there in the city park. Thank you.
I guess we're gonna
Yeah, I would recommend to the board then we table the item for now.
Mr. President,
I guess
I would like to make a motion that regarding proposal loan finance agreement for the port facility enhancement and expansion project, that we table that motion. That we table that consideration.
let's second it, but
One.
right on Deacon.
Yeah, either one.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's 10:20. The other item that I have, I'll just give you in about 2 minutes, and I'll give you something to take. But there's more to be discussed. I think there's been a very fruitful meeting, and I'll give it to you right away, and then we can go from there.
While you're doing that, could we maybe consider a calendar of topics that we need to cover so that we're not just kind of shooting at things? Like Monday, we're gonna do this, the next time we meet, we're gonna do this. Is that something we could work on
They may have copied that too, Jason.
to make sure that we're covering all the things? we need?
Or in October, we need to consider this.
Yeah,
July, we need to
yeah,
consider this.
yeah.
Do you have an extra copy, Jason?
Are you in contact with that?
Do you have an extra copy?
No, I don't. I know you don't.
I have no written contract with y'all. I think I
Charging them $25 an hour?
Then that hour, that's right here. I said, they click it thrice. We heard the clicker going, I have to think.
On this item is projects that are not on the budget, and they're gonna come up and be brought to the board for consideration. The first one is the Brownstone Apartments. It's the city council is receiving a briefing on Thursday, and this developer wants to come in and build apartments. And these, they've got property under contract right next to where Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union is. Just north of that, there's a 4-acre tract that they're looking to purchase. They want to build tax credit projects, and it's a Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs project that the developers get to use tax credits to write off, etc. And in the process, they build apartments, and these would be apartments for low-income folks. We need those kind of apartments, and with more people coming in and people looking to work, either with oil companies or getting displaced by oil companies, we don't have the properties available to them. What the main point, and I wrote it in, that they're gonna be looking for participation from the city. We need a better system, folks.
I think I've got an extra one of those, I'll bring it up.
They're gonna ask, the TDHCA always asks for community participation. In this instance, the way they have their budget planned and what they're gonna present to the city on Thursday is participation from the city in the range of $77,000, either in the form of a loan, of course, grant, they always say that, you can give them $77,000, but the form of a grant loan or in kind. And if you can show that you've made infrastructure improvements within 1/4 of a mile of where the site's gonna be, the state may accept that as participation by the city. So what I presented to them when I first heard of this, well, we're doing all that work on the McCoy property, with the old Witten property. Would that not satisfy this? But I think it's almost a mile away to the north. But anyway, they will make this presentation to the council on Thursday, but I'm sure we're gonna hear about this from the council later on. So I just put the last sentence, city council may ask the FDC to participate in this project. The other thing you've got from the Atascosa Health Center, which is basically, they run the Wilson County Health Center here in Floresville. They're looking to expand the facility, and basically what they're looking from the FEDC, well, one of the things they're doing, not only expand the facility, but also build a senior citizen center in this new facility to include all the kitchens that they have, and to include space for the seniors to come and eat their meals there and have activities at the center. The current center, there's no parking, it's hard to get into, there's issues that they have with it, but they don't have the resources to do this. the Atascosa Health Center main office, which would be the office here in town also, would build this into their facility. And then and for them to do that, then they would ask for the city to participate with them. Basically, the FEC, they like 2 acres that we have out there, you know, behind where the Texas Health and Human Services building is currently being built. And that's a proposal. This letter covers that. I gave that to you for information. At some point then, you know, I will talk to the president and secretary and to see, you know, does the FEC want to entertain this or not. But that's for your information. Executive Inn and Suites, the owner came to see me on Friday, discussing some of the problems they're having with the retention pond that they're having to build in front of the property, which is something they hadn't thought they were going to have to do. But it's a real deep pond because of the way that TxDOT, some of the impositions that they made on it. I advised them at that time then to present something, a plan or whatever to us. I'll present it to the board and let the board decide if the board wants to work with them or not.
And which one is that?
Executive Inn and Suites, they're right next to the Exxon and next to the Richardson Brothers. The Hughes property, I've got a whole plan on that, but it's late. I'll cover that at a later time. The Hughes property is where the Walmart is, the Super Walmart. The Murphy's gas station is there. Tiger Sports Center is coming in. They're working on a bank that's coming in also close to where the hospital is, on that corner lot next to the hospital. They've got plans for hotels and possibly an assisted care living facility. But they're looking for a city and FEDC participation to assist with some of the infrastructure going into this new part of their development. I see some eyes frowning here. And in return, they would donate 48 acres to the city to be developed as a park, which is a property that runs alongside the creek, the Seguin Creek.
That water flood problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more gifts?
But again, we don't have a formal request from them. They've met with myself and the city manager. I've got the plans and I can brief at a later date. Also then, the Witten property and properties to the south, as we cross the water line, the sewer line into the Witten property, there is discussions to extend further south because there is no sewer line past Randolph Brooks. You know, the sewer stops at that point. The water is provided by the Oak Hill Water Company. McDonald's is building a brand new store. Randolph Brooks is going to build a bigger branch. And then there may be other developments if these apartments take off on that property. But County Road 301 behind those properties is basically a little dirt lane. So that again may be something that'll come up in the future. No request from anybody yet, but just thinking ahead.
The drainage problems back there too.
I'm sorry?
Horrible drainage problems.
Big time.
Big time. And there are some, they're cleaning up some land in the back, either for RV parks or housing or something on the backside of that property as well. And then the development of the Camino Real de las Tejas National Historical Trail, that goes right through the city of Floresville down Gomia Road. I've been meeting with the National Park Service. They're doing all the studies. I've gathered all that information and I'll give it to you later. But that's something that what they are asking communities to do is to develop signage and to improve the attractions along the trail and make it a viable trail. Along those lines, also, the National Park Service is going to invest $4.8 million at Rancho de las Cabras, starting in 2014, to develop a visitor center out there, develop interpretive trails. They're going to have rangers on board. You can actually go and drive in there. That's no cost to us other than we stay informed and stay in tune as to what they're going. But all that, it's in the strategic study and in the report that I gave you. Part of the historical, one of the development of our history as a tourist attraction is one of the biggest things we have right now. In terms of new business development, if we can continue working on that, that could mean more development for the city in the future. But those are all things that will have to be fleshed out with more detail. But if we can get more deals like the National Park Service investing $4.8 million in our area, that's a great thing. I continue working with the San Antonio River Authority, see if we can get them to assist us with the park and other things. So all those things are moving and they're working. I've got information, I can give it to you, and you can take it and then discuss it at a later date. But that's all I have right now.
If I may make a quick recommendation for you guys, I'm gonna recommend it to the council as well on Thursday. There's a lot of information and budgeting and things that are gonna be disseminated to you guys. In the interest of transparency, if you could direct whoever's making copies of all this to provide one for the media, that would be great, because there's a lot of things that went out, there's budget sheets that went out, there's future plans that went out, and a whole bunch of things that you guys are doing that we don't have any copies of. And it's gonna be hard for us to go back and ask for a lot of it. So, I mean, just in the interest of transparency, if you could have that and provide that, because I don't have a copy of anything that went on tonight. That'd be great. I'm gonna ask the council to do that.
Give them a copy of.
And normally when today I had so much, and there were so many different things that I had to copy, I just didn't make, sometimes I didn't even have copies for myself. But I can do that, and I normally provide you copies afterward, but I can do that.
Thank you so much.
And also make a few extra copies for the people that come in also.
Okay,
And I understand this time, that when we get to start with the regular
So I
meeting.
guess,
Are we adjourning?
do we need a motion to adjourn?